好啦，第三課第三課咧就係 ocean 啦。咁就同我哋上一課咧，即係 atmosphere 咧，都係講翻關於喺我哋地球裏邊、大自然裏邊邊度揾到 chemicals 咧。咁另一個地方咧就係 ocean 啦，因為咧 ocean 裏邊有好多 sea water，咁 sea water 裏邊咧有好多嗰啲 salt 啊，係啦，咁其實就係我哋好主要嘅 minerals 嘅來源啦。OK。So firstly, the composition of seawater. So seawater is a mixture of water, salt, and dissolved gases. So it contains 96.5% H2O and then 3.5% of salt. So class, don't worry, you need not to memorize all the numbers, except that maybe you can, okay, here, this 3.5 grams of dissolved substance. This one, only this, okay? For 100 grams of seawater, there are 3.5 grams of dissolved solids, dissolved substance, okay? So, and then for the salt here, so you need to know in seawater, there are different salts, different kinds of chemicals inside. And the most abundant ones should be sodium chloride. So sodium chloride is the most abundant one in, excuse me. So sodium chloride is the most abundant salt in seawater, okay? And don't worry, you need not to memorize all these percentage. You just need to know sodium chloride is the most abundant one in seawater, okay? And then other chemicals like MgCl2, this should be 2 here, okay? MgCl2, Na2, SO4, a little bit weird here. The 2 become big, okay? And CaCl2. And don't worry, again, you need not to memorize all the substance inside seawater. Just need to know sodium chloride is the most abundant one, and you don't need to memorize the percentage too, okay? Okay, let's move on here. Maybe like this. Okay, the salt in seawaters are usually metal chlorides and metal sulfate because they are usually soluble in water. The most abundant they are often metal chlorides and metal sulfate. And sodium chloride is also named as common salt. So when I ask you about common salt, you need to know common salt is sodium chloride, all right? Because it's the commonest salt. So it is called common salt. Okay, from seawater, if we want to extract the common salt from seawater, so we can carry out different separation techniques. For example, if we want to take sodium chloride from seawater, we can firstly filter the mixture, because in seawater there may be some sand, the mud, or some seashells, okay, inside. So in order to separate these insoluble substances from our seawater, we need to do filtration. Okay, one reminder here. So remember, filtration is the noun, and then for the verb for filtration, it should be filter. Sorry. So it should be, for the verb, it should be filter. Okay, filter is the verb. So because many students always write filtrate for the verb. Actually, it is not filtrate the mixture, it's filter the mixture. Filtrate is the resultant liquid that we collect at last. So the resultant liquid is called a filtrate. Filtrate is not the noun. It's not the verb for filtration, okay? So we filter the mixture, and then we filter the seawater, and then it can remove all this insoluble solid from seawater. Then how can we obtain sodium chloride from the seawater? So we can do evaporation and crystallization next, okay? Firstly, do the filtration to remove all these insoluble substances, and then we can do evaporation and next crystallization to obtain our pure sodium chloride. So to obtain impure sodium chloride, it can be done by evaporation of seawater. So just in case if we don't require to have a very pure sodium chloride sample, we can just evaporate the seawater. After filtration, we can evaporate all the water away, and then all the salt will remain as the residue here after filtration here, the residue. But you need to know, because evaporation just can remove the water away. So all other salts, for example, we have sodium chloride, we can obtain it. But inside seawater, just now we mentioned we may have also magnesium chloride, sodium sulfate, etc. So all of these are remain here, okay? So it is impure for the sodium chloride. It contains sodium chloride, but it is not pure because it mixes with other salts inside seawater. For example, the sodium chloride, sodium sulfate, magnesium chloride, and all other salts that present. Okay, so evaporation cannot help us to obtain pure sodium chloride, but just can evaporate all the water away. Okay, so a powder will be obtained, and also other salts would also be present. So highlight this. So if we want to obtain pure sodium chloride, we need to apply another method. It's filtration, then followed by crystallization. So evaporation, I think you all know about evaporation, but let me repeat a little bit here. For evaporation, you just need to use the evaporating dish here, and then use the Bunsen burner to heat. And then when the water boil, the seawater with many water, the water boil and will become steam and escape. And all these salts which has a higher melting point will remain as a solid because they have high melting point. So they do not melt and do not boil and then remain here. Okay, just the water evaporate away, and so all the salt remains. Okay, to obtain pure sodium chloride by crystallization. So this is important. So crystallization is a method that we can obtain pure sodium chloride. So crystallization is a method to obtain dissolved solid from a solution. Okay, from a solution we can obtain the dissolved solid. Okay, if we want to collect sodium chloride crystal, we can obtain them from a saturated solution of seawater. So because seawater may not be saturated, because we still can add some more sodium chloride and it can still dissolve them. So saturated solution means it cannot further dissolve any more solid inside. Okay, so what we need to do is to first make the seawater become saturated. So how can we make it become saturated? Is to evaporate some of the water inside. Okay, so we need to warm the seawater in the evaporating dish until a saturated solution is obtained. But how can we know whether it is saturated? It's easy. You can use a gas rod here after maybe some time of heating. You can use a gas rod here, maybe gas rod. Use a glass rod here. and to dip inside this solution and take the glass rock out. If you can see the white solid form after you take the glass rock out on the surface of the glass rock, that means the solution is saturated. 即係話咧，如果我將支 glass rock 點落去個 solution 嗰度，跟住過一陣啫，就見到有啲白色一粒粒嘅 solid form 咗喺個 glass rock 面啦。咁即係話其實嗰個嘢，即係嗰個 solution 已經係 saturated 啦，即係好快就會 form 翻啲 solid 出嚟，即係話已經 hold 唔住佢哋啦。係啦，咁所以就可以咁樣 check 佢係咪 saturated 啦。好啦，跟住咧知道佢係 saturated 之後咧，就可以慢慢等佢凍啦，跟住就 form crystal 啦。So we can cool the solution slowly to obtain crystal. So remember, if we want to obtain a bigger crystal, we need to cool slowly. So we just need to put aside the saturated solution and then wait for the crystal form, okay? Don't put it inside ice water or don't put inside the refrigerator, etc. Just wait. Just put it aside in at room condition and then let it cool down slowly. And then we can obtain a big crystal. We can obtain many big crystals, okay? And then after we form the crystal, we can filter off the crystal and then wash them. So here, filter and then wash and then dry. So after filter, there are still some solution, maybe some impurity stick on the crystal, and then we can wash them because we can wash away those soluble impurity, and then we can dry inside using filter paper or inside an oven, okay, to obtain our crystals. 好啦，咁我呢度想解釋下點解做 crystallization 嘅話，同 evaporation 有個唔同喺度啦。即係 crystallization 點解係 pure， 但係 evaporation 就唔 pure 咧？嗱，就因為咧，之後大概畫下喺度啦。好啦，本身係一個 saturated solution 啦。咁其實喺呢度裏邊最多嘅溶咗裏邊。最多嘅嘢係咩咧？就唔係咩 magnesium chloride 啊 sodium sulfate， 而係 sodium chloride， 因為佢係佔最多數噶嘛。咁所以第一個會開始出嚟，即係唔用啦。嗱，因為咧啲本身係 saturated solution， 過一陣啲水都會 evaporate 噶嘛，即係擺喺空氣嗰度，即係擺喺我哋 room temperature， 其實慢慢都有 evaporation of water， 都會即係慢慢蒸發噶嘛啲水。咁蒸發咗少少水啦。咁我哋因為係 saturated solution 啦，咁再 hold 唔到咁多 solid， 因為少咗水，咁少咗水去溶我哋嗰啲 solid， 即係嗰啲咩 sodium chloride 啊嗰啲嘢。咁所以咧再 hold 唔到咁多 solid 喺裏邊嘅時候咧，第一個出嚟嘅係咩咧？就係 sodium chloride。係啦，第一個出嚟就係 sodium chloride 啦。係啦，第一個出嚟嘅 solid 係 sodium chloride。好啦，咁跟住咧。就有一粒即係好細粒點嘅 sodium chloride 出咗嚟啦。咁跟住咧，其實咧佢就會 attract 翻，因為佢出咗嚟啦，佢就會 attract 翻啲 sodium chloride 繼續黐上去佢嗰度，係啦。咁慢慢咧就可以 grow 到 crystal 啦。咁其實咧佢係唔會吸引到其他嘢，即係佢唔會吸引到 magnesium 上去啊，或者吸引到 sulfate 上去嘅，佢淨係吸翻 sodium ion 同埋 chloride ion 上去，即係其實佢係咁嘅，即係好啲應該話啦 ，sodium chloride 其實係有 sodium ion 啊 ，chloride ion 啊，跟住咧呢度又會 attract 翻啲 chloride ion 落去啦，跟住呢度又 attract 翻 sodium ion 上去啦，咁其實咧佢就會慢慢吸引對方啊，即係一路吸引住我哋自己本身嘅嘢啦，即係 sodium chloride 一路吸引佢哋上去啦。呢個又吸翻 sodium chloride 上去，係啦。咁所以咧，慢慢就會 grow 到個 crystal 咧，其實就係全部都係 sodium chloride， 而唔會有其他雜質喺裏邊。咁所以就係 pure 噶啦，我哋啲 crystal， 因為佢慢慢係做 crystallization， 就係慢慢砌下啲 ion 上去，咁就慢慢就會 form 到我哋想要嘅嘢啦，就係 pure 嘅 sodium chloride 嘅 crystal 啦。咁所以就有分別咯。Evaporation 咧係冇差別嘅，全部就咁啲水 evaporate 走，其他嘢淨在喺度。咁但係如果係 crystallization 咧， 就係淨係吸翻自己嘅嘢咧，即係 sodium chloride 就吸翻 sodium chloride 上去，就慢慢 build up 個 crystal 咯。好啦，咁跟住就呢度講下點處理啲 crystal 啦，就係 filter 咗佢啦，跟住咧係啦。跟住 wash 佢啦 ，wash away 啲 insoluble impurity 啦，最後就係 dry 咗啲 crystal 啦。咁呢度咧就係話，如果係 evaporation 嘅話就有 impurity 啦，但係如果 crystallization 嘅話咧就係 pure 噶啦，嗰啲 crystal 係啦。最主要嘅分別就係呢度啦。好啦，咁跟住啦，啱啱我哋講緊嘅內容咧，全部都係講緊 obtaining sodium chloride from seawater. But then now we need to isolate, for example, in the reverse, we want pure water from seawater. Okay, we want pure water from seawater. So for this, so firstly, simple distillation is a method for separating pure liquid from a solution. 好啦，咁如果調翻轉，我而家唔係要嗰個 sodium chloride， 我係要水咧，我就用 simple distillation 啦，係啦，我就用 simple distillation。咁點解可以用 simple distillation 咧？就因為咧，其實水同埋 sodium chloride 嘅 boiling point 咧就差好遠嘅。water 咧，即係如果係水咧，個 boiling point 就係100度啦，係啦，水嘅 boiling point 就係100度。咁但係咧 ，sodium chloride 咧就會係高過100度好多嘅，幾百至千零度啦。我唔記得個數值啦。總之就高好多啦。咁所以咧，其實就係成個過程咧就係咁樣做嘅。就係如果用下邊嘅 simple apparatus 咧，我解釋一次先。首先咧就係 sea water 喺呢度啦，係啦 ，sea water here，and then we have Bunsen burner here for the heating, and we add some anti-pumping granules. Later I will tell you what are anti-pumping granules, okay? So when we heat the mixture, seawater will have water and also the salts inside. Firstly, water will boil first because water has a lower boiling point than those solid inside, for example, the magnesium chloride, sodium sulfate, etc. So water will boil first and become a gas, and then go here across the delivery tube to here. So from at this place, so we have cold water bath with ice water. So we have ice water bath, and then the water vapor condense. So there are gas here, water vapor, and at this boiling tube, so the surface is very cold, so the water vapor condense and drop here. So it will become the water distillate. So this is the distillate. So after the distillation, the liquid that we obtain is called distillate. All right. So this is the simple apparatus. But in the lab, we also have some quick fit apparatus. Let me explain to you here. So this is called a set of quick fit apparatus. So here we have 好啦，咁嗱，我講少少咩叫 quick fit apparatus 咧？咁其實就係即係可能會有啲 apparatus 喺手會好睇啲啦。咁其實 quick fit apparatus 咧就係話佢設計到啲玻璃嘅 apparatus 嚟嘅都係，但係咧佢一扭咧就會實㗎啦，即係就會卡住咗啊，就唔會甩落嚟啊。即係如果你就咁兩個玻璃咁樣，即係雖然佢哋 fit 好啦，但係咧佢可能會甩落嚟㗎嘛，即係佢唔會即係啲 joint 位啊，呢啲其實有 joint 位㗎啦，啲 joint 位，即係譬如呢啲咁，其實都係要用 stopper 啦。咁但係啲玻璃嘅話，其實佢唔係實晒㗎嘛。但係 quick fit 咧就係好好嘅，全部都玻璃嘅。但係咧佢一合埋一齊 joint 埋一齊咧，扭一扭咧，佢就實咗㗎咯。即係唔會好易甩咗出嚟嘅，即係唔會咁危險嘅。但係你行翻相反，扭翻相反方向咧，佢就可以可以分開佢哋咁樣咯。咁好啦，呢個就叫 quick fit apparatus 啦。 咁好啦，咁我呢度其實佢係差唔多嘅嘢，爭在咧，我哋就係用 quick fit apparatus 做啦。咁都係一樣有 seawater 喺度啦，跟住咧加熱啦。And seawater inside have water and water has a lower boiling point at 100 degrees Celsius. So water will boil first and become water vapor. And here we have a condenser. So this is called a condenser. So for this condenser, we have some water go inside and water go outside. 嗱，咁其實呢個 condenser 咧，你就唔好諗住一啲水沖入去裏邊，咁其實唔係沖入去裏邊嘅，佢係加啲水入去啦。呢度有2層玻璃嘅，呢度即係雖然好細啊，其實呢度係有1層玻璃、2層玻璃嘅。2層玻璃嘅話咧，其實即係話，其實啲水咧入去咧就唔係直接接觸我裏邊嗰啲water vapor 嘅，佢係喺啲玻璃度行，即係玻璃裏邊行，咁咧就可以俾一個好凍嘅 surface 呢個位啦。即係呢啲位咧就好凍啦，或者即係呢啲位就好凍，咁所以咧就會令到咧我哋啲 water vapor 嚟到呢度咧就接觸到好凍嘅玻璃 surface， 跟住就 condense， 跟住就滴落下邊咁樣咯。咁所以呢個叫 condenser， 因為呢個位係做 condensation 嘅。OK， 好啦，咁我呢度解釋下個 apparatus， 再講多少少啦。咁呢個 quick fit apparatus 咧，我哋都有 thermometer 嘅。好啦，個 thermometer 咧嗰個 bulb 咧。即係 thermometer 嗰個係啦，個 bulb 咧就要直接對住個 outlet 嗰個位係啦。So the thermometer here, the thermometer bulb should place next to the open of the delivery tube or the water condenser. So here is the water condenser, alright? To measure the exact temperature of the distilling 係啦，因為其實係呢個位出嚟噶嘛，嗰啲即係嗰啲 water vapor 或者唔係 water vapor 其他嘢，即係如果我哋而家 separate 其他嘢嘅話，咁係呢個位咧，佢就會變做即係佢變咗做 gas 啦，跟住去 condenser 嗰度 condense 啦。咁所以其實我哋係會可以用呢個 thermometer 度緊出緊嚟嗰隻嘢嘅 boiling point 嘅 ，OK， 度緊出緊嚟嗰隻嘢嘅 boiling point， 所以就要喺呢個位度啦。好啦，咁啱啱講咗 anti-pumping granules 係即係話未講啦。咁其實咧呢度咧，我係想做嘢咧，就係話我想將呢個咁嘅 seawater 裏邊嘢分開啦。咁如果未分之前彈咗過去咧，咁就 impure 噶啦。呢度 distillate 咧就唔止係水有啲垃圾嘢，有其他 impurity。咁所以其實我哋點解要加 anti-pumping granules 咧？其實就係話，因為咧有時如果我哋啲水滾得太犀利，我哋要彈咗過去噶嘛。滾得太犀利，可能會滾瀉啊嘛。咁 anti-pumping granules 咧，其實就係啲好似石仔咁嘅嘢。咁如果當我有啲泡瀑上嚟嘅時候咧，佢就會啲石仔就砸翻佢落去咯。咁就令到我個 boiling 咧就唔會即係唔會卜得咁犀利，可以咁講。咁即係話其實咧，佢就係 prevent pumping 同埋 ensure smooth boiling。你識㗎 anti-pumping granules 嘅用處嚟嘅呢個係好啦，咁跟住咧呢個 distillation 嘅 set up 咧，要提大家咧就係你要識畫要 label 翻呢個係 water in 喺下面嘅 water out 咧就係上邊，即係呢個係 water out， 呢個 water in 啊，唔好調轉啦。同埋咧要提大家呢個咁嘅 test tube 咧係即係呢個位咧。係開口嘅，你唔好話直接插個花喺呢度，佢係開口嘅。點解唔可以直接插個花喺度咧？或者直接整支test tube 跟住整個 stopper 喺度咧？記住，我哋加熱緊嘢咧係唔可以係 close system 嘅，即係唔可以係 close system， 唔可以，因為如果 close system 嘅話咧會爆炸。咁呢度係 open to air 㗎，咁所以咧就因為呢個加熱緊咧。裏邊會個氣壓會上升㗎，如果你塞住晒所有咧，其實會爆炸嘅。咁所以一定要係唔可以係 close system 啦。咁所以就會係咁樣 open to air 咁樣咯。OK， 好，繼續。好啦，跟住咧我就不如我哋 take 個等陣